February 3, 1945. Camp Desert Rock, Arizona. The military truck came to a halt outside the gates of a prisoner of war camp that looked nothing like what Irma Schultz had imagined. She had expected barbed wire and watchtowers, gray buildings, and armed guards with hostile faces. What she saw instead was a sprawling compound under Arizona's endless blue sky, with wooden barracks that appeared almost welcoming in the late afternoon sun. Beside her, 24 other German women sat in tense silence, their auxiliary corps uniforms dusty and worn from the long journey from the West Coast Processing Center. Irma was 26 years old, a nurse from Berlin who had believed she was serving her country's defense. Now she was a prisoner in enemy territory, thousands of miles from home, facing an uncertain future that terrified her more than she wanted to admit. The younger women looked even more frightened. 18-year-old Clara Becker clutched a small photograph of her family, her hands trembling. Anna Fisher, just 22, stared straight ahead with the blank expression of someone trying not to cry. The guards who met them at the gate were professional but not cruel. They processed the women efficiently, assigning them to barracks and explaining camp rules in English that most of them barely understood. Irma, who had studied some English in school, found herself translating for the others, her voice shaking as she tried to make sense of unfamiliar words. The American soldiers didn't shout or threaten. They simply went about their duties with a matter-of-fact efficiency that was somehow more unsettling than hostility would have been. As evening approached, a guard announced that it was time for dinner. The women exchanged nervous glances. They had heard stories about prison camps, about starvation rations and cruel deprivation. Irma remembered the propaganda she had been shown about American brutality, about how prisoners were treated worse than animals. She steeled herself for whatever meager scraps they would be given, determined to maintain her dignity. They were led to a large dining hall that smelled of corn and spices. Long tables were set with metal trays and cups, and then the food began to arrive. Private David Cohen, a young Jewish-American soldier with kind eyes, carried steaming bundles wrapped in corn husks to each table. He carefully unwrapped one, revealing a cylinder of corn dough filled with seasoned meat. Beside it, he placed a bowl of green creamy sauce and a small dish with golden custard topped with dark caramel. Irma stared at her tray in complete confusion. The wrapped bundle was unlike anything she had seen before, soft and steaming with an earthy corn smell. The green sauce looked strange and unfamiliar. Around her, the other women sat frozen, uncertain whether this was some kind of test or trick. Clara lifted the tamale to her lips and took a small bite. Her eyes widened in shock. The taste that exploded in Clara's mouth was nothing like she had expected. The masa was soft and rich, the meat inside seasoned with spices she couldn't identify. There was warmth and depth, a complexity that German food never had. She took another bite, then another, unable to stop herself despite the confusion flooding her mind. Around the table, other women were having similar experiences, their faces showing the same mixture of shock and guilty pleasure. Irma dipped her finger into the green sauce and tasted it cautiously. The guacamole was creamy and fresh, with flavors of avocado, lime, and cilantro dancing on her tongue. When she spread it on the tamale, the combination was extraordinary. Finally, she tried the flan. The custard melted in her mouth, sweet and silky with bitter caramel that balanced perfectly. Across the mess hall, cook Maria Gonzalez watched the German women's reactions with quiet satisfaction. The 48-year-old woman had been cooking in this camp for 3 years, feeding German and Italian prisoners alongside American soldiers. She had seen this same expression many times before, the shock of discovering that their captors weren't monsters, that American food could be generous and flavorful, that perhaps everything they had been told was a lie. She nodded to David, who continued serving second helpings to any woman who timidly raised her hand. 34-year-old Frieda Muller, the former doctor from Hamburg, ate slowly and methodically, but her mind was racing. She had spent months believing that capture meant death or worse. The propaganda had been clear. Americans were barbaric, especially toward women. They would be starved, abused, perhaps killed. Yet here she sat, eating a meal that was not only adequate but actually delicious. The cognitive dissonance was almost physically painful. How could enemies feed you this well? How could the people you had been taught to hate show such casual generosity? 30-year-old Brigitte Kraus, the communications officer from Munich, refused to let herself enjoy the meal. She ate because she was hungry, but she kept her face carefully neutral, her posture rigid. This was a trick, she told herself. They were fattening the prisoners up for some purpose or trying to win their cooperation through false kindness. Real enemies didn't feed you their own traditional food. But even as Brigitte maintained her defensive walls, she couldn't help noticing small details that chipped away at her certainty. The guards ate similar food, sitting at nearby tables. David smiled when he offered second helpings, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. Corporal Ruth Jackson, one of the few female guards, walked through the mess hall checking on the women, asking in slow, simple English if they needed anything. 4 weeks into their captivity, routines began to feel almost normal. But it was Irma Schultz who experienced the most unexpected transformation when Sergeant John O'Brien approached her with an unusual request. "Miss Schultz," he said, "Cook Gonzalez needs help. You interested in kitchen work?" Irma nodded slowly. The next morning, she stood in the large camp kitchen, overwhelmed by industrial-sized pots and unfamiliar ingredients. Maria Gonzalez, a commanding presence in her white apron, nodded toward corn husks soaking in water. "Can you learn?" Irma picked up a husk, grateful for a task. As she worked, Maria noticed her wide-eyed observation and smiled. "In America, we believe in feeding people proper. Don't matter if you're a soldier or a prisoner. Everybody eats." She paused. "My people came here with nothing. We know what it's like to be treated less than human. I don't hold with that, no matter who you are." The words hung heavy between them. Maria Gonzalez was Mexican-American, showing kindness to German prisoners from a nation built on racial hierarchy. The irony wasn't lost on Irma. Later, after Germany's surrender, 9 women, including Irma, Frida, Anna, Clara, and Brigitte, asked to stay rather than return to a ruined homeland. They had learned that enemies could become something better. Years later, in 1968, Irma Schultz O'Brien prepared Thanksgiving dinner in Phoenix, Arizona. Her friends arrived: Frida Muller, now head pediatrician, Anna Fisher, an executive secretary, and Clara Becker Gonzalez, who had inherited Maria's restaurant. They raised their glasses. "To Maria," Irma said softly. The tamales were delicious, but what really nourished them was discovering they could become better people than they had been.